Good afternoon and welcome along to Destination Wellbeing. My guest this afternoon is Martin Rafferty, and Martin and I are going to chat this afternoon about his experiences as a counsellor and also share with you some of his wonderful poetry. Martin regularly speaks and talks in the area around addiction and spirituality, so we'll be hopefully blending in a bit of a mix of all of the above this afternoon. I'm bringing a bit of balance as well to the show because over the last few weeks we've had a lot of women on board, so we need that bit of masculine energy in the studio as well, and hopefully we'll have lots of inspiration and words of wisdom that will come out of our interview today. You're very welcome to Destination Wellbeing.
Pleasure to be here, Joanne. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure.
And just again to remind our viewers, as we do at the start of all of our shows, that if they have any concerns about their own emotional, physical or mental well-being, that they obviously speak to their own GP as a first port of call, and taking responsibility for their own health and well-being at all times, and just making sure that anything that is there that might be niggling away at you, that you go and have a chat with someone, because we spoke just before coming on air, Martin, about it's important, it's good to talk and it's good to reach out and to ask for help, really, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for anybody in general, but especially for us males, we seem to find it very difficult, so we do, to to put words to our feelings, even just to open up. Yeah. I think it goes back to that masculinity thing that we were talking over lunch about,
yeah,
in a sense.
There's and I know there's a hashtag that's been going about at the minute, but there's no shame in asking for help, and I know that's also the up and coming cycle against suicide, which is very big in the south and is for the first time coming north this year. That's one of their key messages, is reaching out, asking for help, and just sharing thoughts and feelings, and that there's no shame in that. But we'll have to bear with Martin as well this afternoon, because he's suffering the bonus side of being a Liverpool supporter at the minute, and getting very excited at matches, so his throat's a little bit hoarse, but I'm sure we'll be able to bear with that and get that
it's
through.
The first time we've something to share about since 2005.
Yeah, so we'll forgive you. Yeah, we'll definitely forgive you on this account. But from your background, Martin, as a counsellor, then you've been working in the field of counselling for a number of years.
I have, Joanne. Yeah, my background was working with young people at risk initially, and then it just developed more and more into working with older people. And I still have that link with the young people, like in relation to talks, going into groups and that. But for the last 10 years, I've been working more in the whole area of therapy. So I have counselling therapy, and mainly in the area of substance abuse and addictive behaviours.
Which I suppose will hope, you've got, as you say, you've the experience of what can go wrong, and you're able to blend that in with speaking to young people. That's and using those experiences, which is a very important, the role of educating, and really prevention is better than cure.
That's exactly it, and it is, you're right, it is a road, and it can be a long road or it can be a short road, and it's a road that has many twists, many turns, and even many blind spots that some people don't see, how they got from A to Z in relation to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, and myself included, suffer from sort of a stereotypical image of what someone who's gone through addiction is, or where they've come from, but it's all walks of life.
Doesn't have any class, doesn't care about the gender, doesn't any town, city, village. It's around, so it is.
Yeah, and increasingly, as you say, over the last 10 years, your particular focus has been in counselling therapy along with older people. Have you found in that period of time that it is increasingly more drug addiction that's a problem, or is there still a lot of alcohol addiction, gambling addiction, and that?
There's certain trends that change, Joanne. One in relation to like illegal substances, cannabis, now weed, that would always be the top, so it would have been. But alcohol is always, it's probably Ireland's probably drug of choice in a sense, and because of we were talking about mental well-being, because of the effects that it has, just in relation to our mental well-being. It's a depressant. Some of it, small amounts of it would give you a stimulant that makes you feel good. It's very socially acceptable, and but too much for over a too long a period, it does cause its own problems in relation to our mental health, especially. So it does.
And it is something that people forget about, because we all look at the great night out being a night of alcohol, and the bit where it sort of only masking over a problem and where it can actually bring the downer often gets missed.
And it's so available.
Particularly by young people, yeah. And so socially acceptable.
No matter what
as well.
gas station you go into, no matter what shop, a corner shop, you see it there, and they're great at, you know, buying us into it, like in relation to buy 2 bottles of wine for the price of one. It seems that most places seem to have, you know, a wine license nowadays. So it really is there, you know, as I say, into most shops we go into as well. And again, yes, it's habitual as well, so it is. And given the economic and, you know, slowdown that's happened over the last few years, it can be very, very easy just to, you know, a glass of wine can go to 2, because we do marry the 2 of them together in relation to relaxing. So we do, you know.
And can sometimes, I mean, I'm just back from a few days in Italy, and the culture is whilst wine is readily available, it's a very different cultural experience, because it's taken a lot more with food and a lot more, I suppose, limit or discretion with how much alcohol would be drank. It might be a glass of wine with dinner rather than just a glass of wine for the sake of a glass of wine. There's a difference.
And that's been the you know, a trend for our European counterparts for many, many years. Whereas here wine has really just exploded in the last 10, 15 years, in a sense.
It's something that and again, as you were talking about gender, it is pretty socially acceptable for a female, for a woman to drink, to have a bottle of wine, whereas other drinks of choice maybe aren't just so socially acceptable that can be shared. So there's a lot of work, I think, needs to be done in education.
Yeah, because recent research has shown that a lot more men are beginning to drink the wine now as well. Okay. So
it's an interesting spin across. And just today I briefly caught on the radio some statistics where they were saying that the majority of, I'm not sure if it was north, south or UK based, as I say, I just picked it up briefly, but the majority of people who are now seeking help for problems related to alcohol addiction started drinking at 16. It was that younger age group, and we see the same trend with smoking. The younger people start, the more likely they are to stick with it throughout life as well.
That's it, yeah, and it seems to be, alcohol it's always been a lot more socially acceptable. You know, even just in relation to whether it be, you know, family events, whether it be, you know, a wedding, whether it be a christening, it's always been there, so it has. But we just seem to be sometime overindulging too much, and for us adults, we have to be very careful the message that we give in relation to the younger people coming behind us, because if we're giving them mixed messages that we need to be, you know, drinking or getting drunk to have a good time, it can send the wrong message to them in a sense in that, you know, because if you look back in hindsight, sometimes their messages were passed down to us, so they were from our, you know, whether it be our parents or older generation.
Or society in general. Yeah. It's a society message, whether it's directly parents or who falls into.
Like, there's nothing wrong with alcohol. It's grand. It's fine. So it is. It's like, it's just in moderation.
Yeah, and I think there's another part of it, I suppose, is also knowing your personality in that as well, yourself, and who you are with alcohol, who you are without it, and am I the person that I want to be without alcohol, and building those characters.
Doesn't agree with everybody. It just depends what you have going on for you, even on a daily basis, what you have, what you've eaten, the company that you're with, you know, how you are in a state of in a frame of mind or whatever. As I said, it is a depressant, so somebody that might be going through a lot, they might drink, you know, to help with that burden, and whether it be stress levels or whatever, and they just need to be very careful. And because I say we need to be very careful, because it's very easy for any one of us, you know, to do that there. But if we are going through a lot, sometimes you might think that the alcohol will help support us or whatever, but it can cause more problems if we overindulge.
Then it'll solve. And then I suppose the problem that maybe some parents aren't as familiar with is substance abuse and illegal drug abuse, and that's
it, you know. And it's easy, a lot more accessible today than it's ever been. You know, and weed has taken, as I said, you know, in America they call it marijuana, some call it pot. Cannabis has been there, hash as it's mainly known as, has always been there. But the weed nowadays, And where it used to, before it would come from Colombia, other places like that, now it's homegrown. They're grown at home here, but they're forcing it to grow. So they're using all these different chemicals in it, trying to make it grow quicker and all. So a lot of young people, they don't realise how strong the potency of, and what's actually been mixed in that, as I said, with the chemicals. So that there is playing a big part. And I worked in psychiatric services for 15 years, and I've seen how, in relation to that grey area between 16 and 18 especially, for young people, there's not that many services available for them, you know, to put them in somewhere. So you're putting them into psychiatric services, hoping that maybe this would help in a sense, because they were getting what was called, you know, induced cannabis psychosis. But it's important to remember that it's the minority of people who use drugs, not the majority. Yeah. If you don't use drugs, you're in the majority, because a lot of young people might feel that, you know, I know 5 people who are doing it. For every 5 people, you'll probably get 1,000 that isn't doing it at all.
Yeah, and I think that is the important message when we're educating young people, is that this isn't the norm, and it's not. It might look like it's been the norm, and when the more we talk about, sometimes the more problems can talk about, the more we can create problems, because the more we arouse curiosity
and create fear as well.
Yeah, and create fear around it. But it's the vast majority, and you know, sports organisations and young people involved in music and drama and a lot of that are doing a lot of positive work to support young people, to give them alternatives. But I think it is that there's that fear that with young people and with peer pressure, that, well, they think everybody else is doing it. But that's, for me, is a very important message to reassure parents, and to ensure that they're reiterating that to young people, is that they're in the majority if they're not doing drugs, or
that's
they're not
it.
using drugs.
You know, you mentioned the word in relation to, you know, peer pressure and stuff like that. A lot of times it's to do it like peer preference. If someone's going to smoke, well, you'll go to the back of the school or go to wherever it is them young people are smoking. So a lot of it is choice as well. And so, but they are doing a lot of great work in relation to peer education. You know, you're training up young people to train their peers. And I guess probably us as adults, as I said, you know, we're standing even on the shoulders of our own childhood, so we are. So as adults, we have to be very mindful of them mixed messages that we sent out, and our own habits and that.
Yeah. And I think one of my big areas of interest that I work with is running relaxation workshops and things like that for children. But that was very much one of the reasons why I got involved in it, because I thought if we can teach young children at 4 and 5 and 6 resilience, confidence, self-esteem, and techniques and practices that can help them through difficult times. I know myself, through different experiences in life, that my holistic background, even whether it was using a bottle of lavender oil to help me relax and stay calm, through exams or through grief or relationships or whatever, a nice bath, things like that, but having that way of thinking stopped me from turning to drugs, to alcohol.
Yeah, that was great. That was great for you, and it worked for you, and you're sharing that with other people that work for you, and it's wonderful, that, in a sense. And you're right when you do mention, you know, because some people think, oh, 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. You know, Sigmund Freud said that the child is actually the father and the mother of the adult. And it's like anything, as I said, we're standing on the shoulders of our childhood. It's like a building, the foundation being the most important. And where you're talking, when you're in relation to that, Joanne, about reaching them even as young as that, you're strengthening that foundation.
It's positive messages at a young age.
That's exactly,
that you hope stand by them when they're 16, 17, 18 or younger, when they're making choices, you know, that they've got enough confidence and self-esteem within themselves to make choices that are positive. And
our parents didn't have that, unfortunately. They didn't have the, you know, this whole thing in relation to psychology. They didn't have this whole thing in relation to, you know, talking positive, and even shows like this one here. It was, their parents came from an older school, so they just kind of learnt and then, but well, we are very lucky in a sense that we do, and even just having this conversation today, we're very lucky that we do have these opportunities to be able to talk openly about it. And that's the message that young people will even see to ourselves. And they hear us parents talking about it. Because you were talking about mental health at the very beginning. If we're not able to talk openly about that, how are we supposed to give that message to younger people that if they're going through something, that it's, you know, that they don't have them skills to express themselves?
Yeah. there's still that taboo and that
Yeah.
the whole thing that needs to be broken down around that. But as you said, if as adults we can have the conversations and talk about feelings and talk to children about feelings and emotions and allow it to be okay to talk about those feelings and those emotions.
That's exactly it, you know, and as I said, they'll pick that even up from ourselves and that there. And if you're talking to them and it's age appropriate in relation to that, that if you can keep that thread and that line of communication open, for, you know, for ourselves and for the young people. Too many parents nowadays, we all want to be on friendly terms with our children, but we're not. We have to remember that we have to have that boundary in relation to that we're the parents and they're the children. Yeah. That doesn't mean that we can't talk to them openly. It doesn't mean that we can't talk to them, you know, that if something is going on for them. And a lot of times we need to watch that, so we do. We need to watch the young people, because sometimes we need to hear what they're not saying as opposed to what they're saying to us.
I think
to be able to pick up on that. One
of the quotes that I came across a while back, which really stuck with me, was listen to children about when they're small, about their big things, because you want them to then still talk to you, you know, even if it seems so insignificant. As a child, as a 3-year-old who gets so excited because they're afraid of the monster under their bed or whatever it is, then to keep that open communication, listen when they've got that fear, because to them it's always been a big thing.
That's it.
So if you want them to talk about the big things when they get older, you have to remember that what their fears are when they're small have always been big for them, and they need to be able to relate through those.
Yeah, and as adults, we need to remember that, you know, that we still have a lot of fear. That there's a lot of stuff there that, you know, that has been running, you know, from our own childhood that we carry into the adulthood. And you were talking about taboo, and when it comes to mental health, especially for men in general, for some reason, you know, we do find it sometimes very difficult to talk about our feelings. We do find it very difficult to, you know, to tell somebody else that we're struggling. So we do, because we're afraid that if we do tell them, that either one, maybe, you know, is it a sign of weakness, or two, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And the truth of the matter is that by talking, it's, you know, my grandfather used to always say a cup of tea, and he was from Tyrone. He used to always say a cup of tea is acknowledged to be a famous restorer in sorrow. And it's the truth, you know, if something's going on, just to sit down with a friend and over a cup of tea, and to be able to tell them, if you're struggling, to be able to tell them that if there's something going on for you, or you're feeling, you know, not as good as you were before. But if we can just learn to do that there, just for ourselves on a personal level, and every single one of us, our lives are very much shaped and moulded the same to the end. We've all got the same problems, we've all got the same issues, that it's common. And I was a Dominican priest I remember hearing one time, and he said, somewhere along our lifeline, we are all wounded in our capacity to relate to each other. And by having that there, by having that common theme, you know, that it just, and sharing it with somebody, it takes that burden away from ourselves. You know that old saying, that problem shared is a problem halved.
Well, that's one that we're all
I can't stress enough, working as a counselling therapist, and even for myself, I have my own peer group where I would sit down, I would talk to, I go to supervision every 2 weeks, and if there's something going on for me, I will go and I will bring that to them. And I'm very lucky to have that, so I am. And that's why a lot of times, I think so many times, of people feeling very lonely, very isolated, and maybe not being able to, you know, to find the proper place where to go to. But if they can just find somebody around them, whether it be a family, whether it be a friends, just to be able to begin to talk to them. And as you said at the very beginning, the community, it's there. These places are available if we look for them.
Yeah, it's looking, and it's also, I think one of the other things to remember is that if a family or a friend maybe doesn't feel to be the right person, that there are professional people there who can provide that support on a voluntary basis as well, you know, through Samaritans or through Just Ask, and there's lots of different organisations there, and you know, these people, it's like where people may be frightened going to the doctor with certain health problems and things like that, because the doctor's probably seen it all before, and anybody who's volunteering or working in any of these organisations have certainly heard the stories before, because as you say, we all can go through them, and a lot of the time, you find that what drives people to maybe volunteer for organisations is their own personal experience of having been through a difficult time.
And I'm glad you mentioned that in relation to, because of the financial ramifications, it can stop a lot of people coming forward. I don't have the money to pay a therapist or whatever. And it does stop a lot of people from coming forward. So there is many groups out there that within the local community that, you know, do offer them services. So they do,
fantastic services. I know in Drogheda there's So Sad organisation as
that's
well.
Right,
that's
yeah.
where, that's
and
that's
it's an excellent Save Our Sons and Daughters. That's right, yeah.
And so there's a lot of campaigns out there, and sometimes, as you say, it's again going back to one of the things that we talked about at the start, is that prevention's better than cure. So it's not even about waiting until the time when you are feeling really low. It's about having preventative mechanisms in place that can help
having that intervention, and when we can do that for ourselves, you know, we are the ones that gain from it, then our families gain from it, and then there's a ripple effect to that there as well.
The community, the whole thing expands out from that. And but I know when we mentioned as well that Martin, that you have written some beautiful books of poetry, and just at this point I think I'll maybe share one of your poems and then we can go on and talk a little bit more, because one that struck me particularly was Go Gently. And I'll share it with the viewers now as well. Go Gently by Martin Rafferty. When love seems failed and your pillow is soft with tears and your dreams are clouded from broken promises, go gently. When your heart feels lost and you just want to be free, like a ship adrift on the boundless sea, go gently. When the road you walk seems long and your eyes are heavy and your silver cloud is weeping, go gently. When your soul's on fire from the secrets of your heart, but your mind you can't keep from drifting, go gently. When the sunlight fades and you're in the shade and the day is hard to embrace, allow your inner light to be your guiding star and remember to go gently. When life is aged and death is called and you cross that great divide, allow the song of eternal life to carry you into the light, and may you go gently. And what struck me about Go Gently was that it's a very relevant message for all of us, because we've got this busy world that just keeps us rushing all of the time. And sometimes wherever we are in our own thoughts or feelings, we need to just slow down and go gently.
Yeah, and it's you know, that poem, it's very much close to me, so it is, because it was wrote just after my mum's passing over, so it was. So and it has stood for me in many times over the last few years, so it has. And I think it was my own spirit probably telling me at the time, Martin, just remember to go gently.
Yeah, just go. There's no need. There's really no need to rush. There's no need for everything to be done in all at the one time. So taking each step. And
a lot of times we're walking from that area of panic and fear, you know, or deadlines to meet or whatever. But yeah, sometimes we do forget to stop and smell the roses.
I noticed on a menu in a restaurant that I was ordering in the other one of the days last week, and it said, we subscribe to the slow food philosophy. So very please good. Take time, enjoy your meal, and don't rush, slow down. And I thought it was because so often again we're in restaurants and it's like,
that's
come
right,
on, come on, I need it now, I need it.
You want the table.
Yeah, you
move
want
on,
it.
move
yeah,
on,
we don't. And again, that's another thing that our European counterparts do, where an evening meal could be 2-3 hours long, and they take their time and they just enjoy the company and the chat and the conversation.
I think we could learn a lot from each other our age.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's always, I suppose it's looking at different parts of life and taking the best and what comes in different areas, isn't it, really? And I know a lot of your poems follow through similar themes that are very close to yourself, to your own emotional experiences, but writing must be a great outlet for thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it is, and it's not something that I would have studied over the years, Joanna. It was just probably something that came. I think the first poem I ever wrote was, I think it was about 8 or 9 years of age, and I slipped it into my mum's handbag. It was for Mother's Day, actually. I was only thinking about this the other day, and I remember she came home that evening. She was out with my dad, and she woke me up and she read the poem out to me. And I remember doing that poem at the time, and then being a teenager writing, and probably stopped for a period of time. But I continued then. I used to just write different short stories or whatever. I think it was more to do with the fact that sometimes I felt I would get an image and it was like as if the word wanted a voice. And I've often, as I said, I've often got an image in my mind or something in my mind and I would write about it. But a lot of times, sometimes I've often written a poem and I've looked back in hindsight and I've wondered where I've come from myself. And probably at this juncture with my writing, I've come to just to see that it's come from that well of creativity. And the words just wanted a voice. But I do find that it is a great outlet for me, so it is. And it's not just even something for myself. It's strange. My daughter taught me that poetry is open for interpretation. I wrote a small poem for my mum, and she read it, so she did. And I asked her. She said, "Who's that about? Was it about Nanny?" And I said, "Yeah." And it was about my mum crossing over. And I turned around, and I said, "Who is she speaking to?" And she said, "Granda." But I was actually thinking of when she met God, you know. And
Right.
but and the last line was she was asking a question after she crossed. Do you remember me?
Oh, yeah.
And my daughter told me, I said, "But she hadn't seen Granda in 3 years, Dad, since she passed." So poetry is very much open for interpretation. And when I do write now, I probably do a lot of times. I probably do think of others, you know, if I could write, I would just love to bring a source of comfort to other people as well.
Yeah, and that's
You know?
and as you say, it's like anything artistic. It's all open to interpretation, and we
Yeah.
can reflect onto something how we're feeling at a particular time. I mean, you can hear a song and feel in a particular way. It has a particular meaning, and fast forward 6 weeks or fast forward 6 months or whatever it is, then it has a whole different. It takes on a whole different feeling, doesn't it? And
That's it,
association,
yeah.
so.
And I would be the same. I've always listened to the likes of Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen, and even gone back before that there to Woody Guthrie and other folk singers and that. And it was always the lyrics that would always it was them that would always captivate me in a sense. In that there, like Bruce Springsteen's Thunder Road. I heard that in 1984, and to this day, it's still my favourite song because there's something about that, the lyrics of that song that I connect to, and I've always carried it with me. So that has always been a great comfort in that. There's another friend of mine, her name is Amanda Jane, and she's an incredible writer, and she writes poetry as well. So she does. When I read her poetry, I can feel that connection as well. Fiona Ferry, she's another one, and these are all local people. So Fiona's up in Dundalk, and Amanda's in Dublin, and they're wonderful poets all together. They really are, so they are, you know.
There's some, and you know, I suppose if we look at Ireland being the land of saints and scholars, there's such we're so blessed to have so much local talent. And
well, yeah, and sometimes we don't realise that, so we don't.
But it's even, I think as well, it's remembering the importance of even just writing down thoughts and feelings. So where yourself or Fiona, you know, have a very special gift in terms of being able to write poetry and to create poems, but even just taking a few minutes every day to just write particularly how you're feeling, or
to go back to what we were saying to me, and you made a very, very good point. Look, if there's somebody that if you're going through something and you don't want to share it with somebody close, or you don't have somebody close and you don't want to talk to a family member, that can be a great way, just as an outlet, even just to write it down. If somebody's ever hurt you, to write a letter down, you can burn it, you can keep it, you can do. And it does give you that, because you're getting it out of yourself.
It gives you a voice.
Yeah, you're getting it out of yourself. And even if it flows poetically, or if it flows, you know, with an angry pen, just get it out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how it comes out. It's getting it out of your system, really, isn't it? And I know through another process, which EFT, where they talk about, and integrated energy therapy as well, where they talk about getting the issues out of your tissues. But writing is a fabulous way of getting it out of in here, where it can do harm, it can do damage, either in your heart or in your head. I mean, we've so many thoughts that are flying through
the
our
physical
head.
body takes it on. It really does. Like if somebody pays you a compliment and you block the compliment, if they pay you a beautiful dress you're wearing and you say, "Oh, this old thing," you've already blocked it. So you've stopped that wonderful energy that was sent from the person who's giving you the compliment. Whereas if you just turn and say, "Thank you very much," you take it on board. There is this law of psychology that if we think positive, we will create a positive pattern. The same if we think negative. And I know it's so difficult. Trust me, I do know, because as I said, you know, we've all had losses, we've all have different experiences in life. And I do know what it is like when you are feeling very, very low, to think positive, you know, to find positive things. Just look for a sign even in the street. You know, or just, if you can pick up a book, if you can pick up something that you've read in the past and it has given you something, Just to go back to that there, you know, and if there's nothing in your past that you've read that has, maybe them words are waiting for you to give them a voice, for somebody else, for yourself and for somebody else.
Yeah, to find that, again, it's that outlet. But the interesting point, as you said, the positive attitude. There's a lot of talk and a lot of different angles and different books and different authors who've written around positive thinking and law of attraction and how our thoughts create our reality.
And we're very envious of these people because we're saying, how come they're able to do it? Or, you know, is it possible to feel, you know, at that positive level every single day, you know, when I'm trying to carry this behind me? And so it can be very difficult to you know, when we add, sometimes it might be a bit of an overkill in relation to it, but it doesn't matter if it's just one step today, as long as it's on the right path.
Yeah, I think for me, even one of the most positive tools that I was ever given or ever, I suppose, embraced was a gratitude list. And again, it's a very formal, but it's writing, but it's finding just something in a day that you're thankful for, and it might even just be. And that makes it small or makes it sound very little. It might even just be a warm bed. It could be the bed that you're sleeping in. It could be the fact that you've had lunch that day. It could be the fact that you've made it through to the end of the day. And really, regardless of what it is, but it's seeking that, and I suppose not just thinking that I'm grateful for this, but actually writing it down, because I think the embracing that idea and finishing every day with what you're grateful for that day is a very positive writing tool to
That's
use.
it, just trying to keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a full book, it doesn't even have to be a chapter. Like, I remember when I was about 16, I read a book called The Strength to Love. It was wrote by Martin Luther King in 1967, and to this day it has stayed with me. He said, "Fear knocked at my door, faith answered, but there was nobody there." And I was only about 16, I'm 44 now, I was 16 when I read that. And so many times over in my life, yeah, I'm not saying I've said it when I was full of fear, but I've always remembered it. You know, and at this juncture, I'd like to think I know exactly what it means, in a sense. You know, so it doesn't have to be a full chapter, so it doesn't.
And it'll mean, yes, because quotes can be just as so relevant and so important for people as well. You know, I've books full of different quotes that can inspire you just very quickly.
That's it.
Because
short term, and some of them will stay with you long term.
Yeah, some of them also. So that was the Martin Luther King. So fear. Tell me that one again.
Fear knocked at my door, faith answered, but there was nobody there.
Yeah, that's and there's so many more, but it's finding the one that resonates with the individual, isn't it? That can pull you through wherever you're at. Or whilst we can look at, so often, a lot of the time we'll engage in personal development or reading books and different things when we're at a low point and we want to get to sort of a place of balance. But there can be a lot said for being at the place of balance and going higher.
That's it,
well.
using it as a platform.
Yeah, using it as a platform to launch. So a lot of the time when we're talking about getting self-help, it's from that dark place that you need to get back to equilibrium. But there's no reason why, when you're on the balance, that you can't totally grow and develop so much more.
And even when you're in that dark place, there's room for transformation, because, you know, what the caterpillar calls death, we call it the butterfly. Yeah. And that happens in that very little dark place, that transformation from the caterpillar into the butterfly. And you're right, and at that moment then he uses that as a platform to take flight into the world, you know.
And often, even, you know, when we use the analogy of the butterfly or the example of the butterfly, but so many people can share similar stories where, and over the past few months I've had such great experiences with chatting with numerous different individuals who have had their own personal story of that, where what might have appeared like, you know, the chips were completely down and everything was, there was no hope, then it had to, the only way was up, and it was growing and it was developing, and can look back now at very difficult times, which might have been times of grief, physical health challenges, breakdown of relationships, or any wide range of areas like that. But through that darkest time, they have had their biggest growth, and can look back now nearly with a sense of thanksgiving for having went through that, because it has created the person that they were today.
Hindsight is great, like with your 2020 vision, but you're right. And that's what we need to find. Instead of saying it's okay for you, you know, you've come through it and all that, we got to use that for even for other people, because I know people when I was at some low points, and people who would have came to me and spoke to me, instead of like, you know, pushing them away or blocking them, whatever, I would have tried to take it on board as a sign of hope.
Yeah,
in a sense,
and remaining with that sense of hope and well-being, that things can change and nothing stays the same, really.
That's it, yeah.
And the other one that I like about the butterfly, or the caterpillar coming out of the cocoon, is the idea that, you know, when it happens from within, the butterfly is allowed to fly, but if someone forces it or breaks the cocoon, then the butterfly stays on the ground. So the change needing to come from within the person rather than externally or being forced. It's allowing it to happen at the right time and at the right pace, and not expecting any major massive results, but just allowing it to unfold and trusting again, and having the faith that it will. So and Martin, we're almost at the end of our show today. Thanks a million for sharing those thoughts and wisdom.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you to our viewers for watching in today. And Martin is certainly contactable through Facebook, or through my own Facebook page or my own website, and I can pass on details if anybody would like to talk or have a chat with Martin about some of his experiences. I'm certainly sure you'll be available for
there's
that.
a few books there if you want to give them away, a competition or something like that.
We'll organise and get a few books out. So if anybody is interested in having some of Martin's poetry or sharing it, then certainly get in touch with me, and we can we'll organise a competition of some sort, because I'm sure there'll be great demand and great interest in that as well. So as I say, thank you for your time, Martin, and thanks to our viewers for watching. And I'll join Rowan on Thursday morning for a little bit more wellbeing insight on his morning show. And if this is your first time watching Destination Wellbeing, then do check out some of our other videos, because we've had a wide range of fantastic guests, all sharing knowledge and wisdom around both physical well-being, but also emotional well-being and life well-being, the well-being of your whole life as well, and how to take control on that. So thank you very much for watching in this afternoon, and we'll be back in touch next week.